How to make my Hmong mom's fermented mustard greens. Like many recipes, my mom knows this recipe by heart, so she never had to write it down. But luckily for you guys, I've tried this recipe many times, and I think we finally nailed down the measurements. Taste test. So good. Perfect. So the first thing we need to start with is the rice starch liquid. That's 1 cup of sticky rice. So if you're not familiar with sticky rice, it's sometimes called sweet rice or glutinous rice. It's different from your regular like jasmine or sushi rice. Now you're gonna give it a quick wash, but it's not a typical wash, you're just gonna wash it once. A quick swirl and dump out the water. This wash is mainly just for getting rid of any debris. You still want the starch that's coated on the outside of the rice, so don't wash it 3 or 4 times like you typically do. Now add 4 to 6 cups of water to your rice. Now bring that to a boil, and then once it's boiling, you're gonna simmer it, but stir occasionally. So at the beginning of cooking, you don't have to stir as much, but later when the sauce thickens, you're gonna stir it a little bit more and more until you are like babysitting it. So this is the point when it starts boiling, so I'm just gonna lower it to medium low, and now it's gonna simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. I did add a little bit more water because it was evaporating too quickly, but honestly, as long as you're not adding like double the amount of water, you should be okay. So as your rice starts to plump up, you're gonna be babysitting a little bit more. So while this is cooking, you're gonna prepare a strainer. I just have a strainer on top of a pot. So when it looks like this, almost like porridge, you're ready to go. Immediately pour this into your strainer, catch all of the rice kernels, and then the liquids you're gonna keep, and then the kernels you're gonna keep. Put it back in the pot, and we're gonna cook it one more time to get as much of the starch as we can. Okay, put the cooked rice back on the stove, add about 5 cups of water to the pot, and we're gonna let that cook to get as much of the starch out as we can. So the second round of cooking is optional. You don't have to do it, but I like to do it just to extract as much starch as I can from the rice so that it can feed the good bacteria that's gonna grow in the fermentation process. And since it's the winter and I have a lot of free snow outside, we're gonna use that snow to our advantage. I'm gonna put the hot first batch of rice starch water outside to cool down. Don't worry, we did cover it, and I had one of the kids keep an eye out for it. So back inside the second batch, I'm just gonna cook it, get it to a boil, and then cook it for an additional like 5 minutes. So the second set of rice water is to top off the fermentation jars. Most of the time, the rice water that you create on the first batch is not going to be enough to fully submerge the mustard greens when you put them in a jar. Typically, my mother just tops it off with tap water, but that doesn't make me feel very safe. So I boil the water with the rice a little bit just to get a little extra starch, but also it's boiled water, so I feel a little bit better. Now our second batch is gonna go sit outside with the first batch. Just kidding. I'm bringing the first batch inside because it's pretty cool now. But look how much ice it melted. It's pretty cool. Anyway, let's go inside and deal with the mustard green. Here are the 2 types of mustard greens we have. This is Gailan, I'm not pronouncing it correctly, and this is Shirley Han, which is another type of mustard green. Honestly, I prefer the Gailan a little bit more than Shirley Han one, but the Shirley Han does taste a little bit more like an authentic Hmong mustard green. So we're gonna do a mixture because we had extra Shirley Han that we don't have any plans to cook with, so it's going into the fermentation jar. Okay, how to prepare the mustard greens. You're gonna break off each leaf and you're gonna throw it in a big pot and then we're gonna wash afterwards. You have to break off each leaf to find all of the dirt and bugs and everything else that's in between those leaves. But once you get to the center, something like this, you can set it aside and we'll clean it when we're washing it. Okay, this is the first half of the leaves that we're going to take to wash. So with the first round of washing, I'm washing it under running water or in a big bowl of water, and you're inspecting each leaf front and back, and you're brushing off with your hands or fingers any specks of dirt, sand, or bugs that are on the leaves. Also look for discoloration or parts of the leaves that are going bad like that, and take it off and throw it away. Now for our second batch. So with the stems, I like to remove this part of the stem. You don't have to remove that much. I should have kept it, but at least cut off the dirty parts on the bottom. Okay, with the centers, you're gonna just cut it in the middle like this and inspect the inside. Make sure it doesn't have sand or any dirt in there, and if it does, just clean it. For the next round of washing, fill up your bowl with a lot of water. In batches, fully submerge the mustard greens in the water. Shake them vigorously underwater to loosen any bugs and dirt that's remaining on the leaves. So while you're washing, don't worry about breaking the leaves. You want to shake it hard underwater to dislodge the bad stuff. Otherwise, you might have to do more than a couple of washes. Once all the mustard green has gone through this second wash, empty all the water, but pay attention to the sediment on the bottom of the pan. I mean the pot, the bowl. What you see right here is unacceptable. This is way too much dirt and sand remaining, so you're gonna have to wash it again. Use the same washing method for the remainder. Get a big pot of water, shake all of the mustard greens underwater to dislodge any dirt or sand, and check the sediment again. I know the process is tedious, but you don't want to be biting into a piece of sand. Trust me, it really ruins the vibe. Anyways, once the sediment on the bottom of your bowl looks like this, I could probably count like 5 specks. I think this is good enough. So you're ready to move on to the next step. Wash the bowl to get rid of that sediment. With the clean mustard greens, you're gonna cut them to size. I'm cutting them down to 4 to 5 inches in length, but the leaves can be a little bit longer if you want, because you're gonna massage it and it's really gonna shrink down. So you can cut them with a knife, or you can just do it by hand like this. With the Shirley Hawn, it was just much easier to do it by hand. Much water as you can. If you can't do it by hand, use a smaller size bowl, just place it on top and then tilt it. Much easier than wrestling the mustard green. Okay, once they are drained, you're gonna weigh it. First, I'm just gonna tare the bowl. Once it has been tarred to 0, tarred, add in the mustard greens, and then I read the reading, and this batch came out to be 6 pounds. Now I need to calculate 1% of that weight in salt. Honestly, I'm not great with these percentages, so I just googled it, and Google said it was 27 grams. Now I realize I only measured to 23, but it's okay. At this state, the salt is just there to help draw out the moisture of the mustard green. Okay. So gloves and goggles are optional. I'm using gloves, but you don't really have to. And then I mentioned goggles because as you're massaging it, the liquids of the mustard green is gonna come out, and it's very mustardy, aka peppery, so your eyes may burn a little. By the way, this is quite a workout. I'm just kind of massaging it, punching it. It's a great way to get your anger out. So after about 20 minutes of massaging and kneading and whatnot, you're gonna get something like this, lots of liquid. A couple of reasons why you don't want to skip the massaging step is because that liquid is the peppery, bitter stuff from the mustard green that you're massaging out. Also, if you don't massage the water out of the mustard green, your final product is gonna be diluted and not taste good. So after the massage, I did leave the mustard greens alone for 30 minutes, so the salt can pull out more of the water from the leaves. And as you can see, it pulled out a lot of water. The next step is to squeeze out as much of the water as you can. I found that it helps if you just, stack the mustard greens on top of each other like this. That way, at least half of the mustard greens are not sitting in its liquids. So I just take a handful and I squeeze as much liquid out of it as I can. Once it's dry like this, I just put it into a separate bowl. Also, this is what the final massaged mustard green looks like, just as a close-up. So with this liquid, I'm just gonna throw it away, but some people do keep that liquid, so depending on how you like yours, you can either trash it like I am, or you can use it to top off your ferments. So now we're gonna make sure that our mustard greens fits the jars that they're meant to go in, because if they don't fit, I could still massage them to get rid of more water so that they can fit. I actually had to do that once. Luckily it fits, so we're gonna move on to the next step, which is crucial. You're gonna weigh it again. So using our kitchen scale, I'm just gonna dump all of it in there, and this time it came out to be about 3 pounds. So we're gonna calculate 2% of that weight in salt, which comes out to 27 grams, which seems very similar to the number we had previously. Long story short, the math checks out. Now we're gonna put the salt on the mustard greens and we're gonna mix that really well. Mix it. Again. Once they're well mixed, you're going to put it back into the containers. If you have to, you can try to pack it in, but I wouldn't pack it in too much. If it's overflowing, it's better to just find another container to put the overflowing stuff in there. Now add the first batch of rice starch water. I don't really like these air pockets, so I'm just going to use a chopsticks and kind of poke around and get rid of some of those air pockets. You don't technically have to get rid of all of the air bubbles. I don't think you can, but I want to just make sure that the rice liquid is properly distributed so that the yeast can do its thing. Now I'm going to top it off with that second batch of rice water. Like I mentioned before, if you didn't make that second batch of rice water, you can use distilled water, or some people also just use that green juice from the mustard greens. Now just give it a nice stir, try to get rid of as many air pockets as I can. And then another very important step is to make sure all of the mustard greens are fully submerged. Luckily, this deli container lid works great. So I'm using that to just kind of push all the mustard greens down. And then I also have these fermentation weights that I'm going to place on top. If you don't have that, you just have to find out a way to make sure that the mustard green stays below the water line. I've seen people use plates. I've seen people use Ziploc bags with water in them. So I think there's a lot of creative ways if you don't have these fermentation weights. Although I do recommend them, make life a lot easier. I also recommend finding a size that will fit your container, not like this one. Anyways, these two are the fresh batches that we just made, and then the middle one is the batch that we had made previously, just for color comparison. Now you need to put these jars somewhere kind of warm. So I like to put them next to my stove, so as I'm cooking it's kind of warming it up, but not too warm. In the summer I like to put it on my back porch where it's warm. Anyway, every day you're gonna go and burp it. Burping just means you're gonna open it, let some of the air out, and then close it back up. Oh, I forgot to mention, make sure you put your jars on a plate or a tray, something like this, because as it ferments, a lot of the liquids are actually going to spill over, so you need something to catch all of that spillover. Depending on your weather, the fermentation process will take about 3 to 7 days, maybe even longer. But one thing I like to test to make sure that it is fermenting is I'll stare at it and make sure it has bubbles and the bubbles bubble up. Or I'll just open it and press down and make sure that there are bubbles coming up. The bubbles mean it's doing its job. So after day 3, I do taste the ferments every day to see how far it's coming along. Once the ferment reaches the right ferment stage, like there's a certain sourness I'm waiting for, I'll put it in the fridge and it'll slow down the fermentation. Putting fermented foods in the fridge is not going to stop the fermentation process. It's gonna keep fermenting, but the low temperature just means it's gonna ferment slower. So you get to enjoy your ferments at its prime for a little bit longer. You kind of just stretch it. Because of all the spillover, I do like to just give it a nice wash before I put it in the fridge. And well, this is the reason why that's all the juices that spilled over and dried on the tray while these were fermenting. Anyways, now we're gonna put them in the fridge. They should keep in the fridge for a couple of months, maybe even longer. You can totally eat them as is, but I like to add a little bit of pepper and cilantro. So the pepper is there to serve as like a little bit of a kick, but the cilantro is there to provide a little bit of freshness. Side note, if you are adding cilantro, make sure you're not adding it to your mother pot unless you're gonna finish it in like a week, because the cilantro is gonna turn bad within a week. So whatever you're mixing cilantro in, make sure you're mixing it for a week's worth only. Taste test. The crunchy bit pepper.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So perfect. So good. Good. Now this goes in the fridge and we eat it for the next, I don't know how long. Try to eat it before the cilantro goes bad, so I'll be eating this for like a week.